Well, howdy folks. This is my first video ever. I want to apologize if it's not the best quality. I wasn't expecting ever to make one of these, but in light of all this Conor and Khabib fight analysis and feedback, I think I finally have gotten the urge and the goal to go on here and do something I typically don't like or enjoy, which is social media. But nonetheless, in the aftermath of everything happened this past Saturday, I thought I'd give my opinion. Not that I have any set of credentials that any of you guys could say allows me and my opinion to carry any weight. But I do think I see things clearly. I see a lot of practical things and a lot of issues on a larger scale than just looking at my own bias opinion and my own simple pleasures and things that I think would benefit me or make me happier. And with that being said, I think that I am good at shedding light on things that a lot of people don't look further into or care to always pay attention to, because they would rather rely on the media and everything else to feed them the junk that makes the media tons of money. So, with all that out of the way, this fight was absolutely awesome. Conor did an amazing job, and Khabib obviously did an amazing job. Make it clear that it does not show that Conor is a crappy fighter. It just shows how good Khabib truly is. But the fight analysis here that could go on for hours is something I'm going to spare you, because that is not the part I think anybody can really debate. The part that I think people should be paying attention to carefully and look further into is the actions after the fight. And that fight was personal, and it was made personal by Conor. Let's face it, he makes every fight personal. And even if at some point in the fight he said to Khabib that it's just business, man, well, that's great and that's grandioso to say something like that if the other person is in on the shtick. They're in on the gig. You know, as a parent, sometimes you play good cop and bad cop as parents. But you're both in on it. You both know the end goal is to come from two different angles to achieve making sense to your child, or getting something across to your child, giving your child two different perspectives that inevitably push them forward in a way that is positive. That's the goal in everything in life. I think that Conor coming into the UFC and making waves the way he has, that's great for his paycheck. But it is not good for anybody else's. And it's not good for the atmosphere. It's not good for the fans. I mean, how many times have you been to a sporting event and you got the jerk fan who's not only constantly obnoxious and constantly making rude comments, makes you want to take your child away and not be at that event, and is inconsiderate of anybody else's money that they've spent to be there, family environment that they would like to have that's the right family environment. There's a time and a place for everything. You want to be a bunch of rowdy people? Go rent a private room and be rowdy, or stay at home and drink with your buddies and become a bunch of knuckleheads. That's entirely okay. But to do it on a level where you're doing this in public, I just think it's shameful and embarrassing. You should be embarrassed to yourself. I get it. There's a lot of things to be passionate about. I was super passionate that night. I get passionate when I watch the fights, but I do it within the own confines of my house. If I was out and I was at a bar and I was enjoying a UFC fight at the bar, my behavior is much different. Maybe I even get excited sometimes, but I don't get rowdy. I don't yell. I don't get amped up and start screaming into the screen because there's other people trying to enjoy that experience and want to maybe hear the fight or something. But again, to not go too far down too many examples and the different rabbit hole here, to stay on topic, Conor brought this on himself, and this should be examined in a way that improves the sport, not takes this whole entire narrative and spins it into a promotional story, like the actions of Conor throwing the dolly into the bus. Using that as a promotional form of material only condones the actions. They always say that when someone commits suicide or there's a school shooting, what's one of the worst things that can happen from those horrible decisions is to publicize them, to put them out there, to the news, to make it mainstream and to promote it. And you could say that the news is saying that it's horrible. It's statistically not healthy to give attention to that. It only spreads that almost like a virus. And in MMA, what has always made me love the sport is that, you watch all these crazy movies. They have all these kung fu kicking mean guys, so they beat up people, this, that, and the other thing. Well, what was one of the first movies to promote martial arts not being like that is Karate Kid. Okay? Karate Kid showed you that there's another side to learning any type of martial art. And, it's one thing to act things out in a film. It's another thing in real life. In today's day and age, this exact device that I'm using now, everybody's on it, and all they do is consume media. And the parents to most kids these days is honestly some form of media. So seeing this, all the fans, young and old, promotes a hostile environment. It helps promote bad behavior. If you research how many fights have gone on this week with this fight at all these press conferences, from the Irish fans getting crazy, or let's say even other fans that got crazy. Not all the Irish fans. I don't want to make it seem like that. You would probably say that comes from the number one person who is in the public eye in this scenario, Conor. I'm not blaming him for every bad action. I'm not saying he wants every bad action to happen. But this is not the WWE. Everyone going in to watching the wrestling, okay, knows that there's a a song and dance there. Okay, there's a script. And so it's entertaining, as so are movies, and it's fun, but there's no real nasty, vicious, violent, actual action that is taking place with those actors in that cage. But in MMA, it's real. And to make it personal no longer makes it a quality professional sport, because that's not what we want to see. If it just so happened to be that there was a real backstory, maybe a childhood backstory between two guys growing up, same neighborhood, one's the bully, or best friends, and they separate because of some dramatic experience, and now these guys want to go at each other, and they happen to both become professional fighters. That's going to be that 1 in a million chance, and you can't prevent that. But let's be clear, that is not what is going on in the last several years in the UFC, and it's in my opinion due to the fact that the UFC lost their golden pony, their number one white horse, black horse, whichever you want to say a person should come riding in on, okay? Now, it doesn't have to be a white horse. But who was that? In my opinion, GSP. To my friends, that will probably be the only people who watch this video, unfortunately. They're going to say that that's because I'm biased and I like GSP so much. And I'm going to have to say that, okay, there's a part of me that's biased to that, but bias, in my opinion with that, but it doesn't come from me having a lack of understanding of why I would pick him. That would make it an educated choice also. And that educated choice is because George St. Pierre, he showed what champion should be. He showed it on the field. He showed it off the field. He has constantly been a promoter of good energy, happy life, family values, respect to the fighters, everything. And no matter how much crap has been talked on him, he has never ever faltered in that. He's never joined in on the shtick. And so, to me, when he decided he was leaving the sport, my back end theory is, he was the largest draw, and the way he left, Dana White and the staff with no golden hero, no big draw. And what happened shortly after that? You saw these Brock Lesnar come in. You saw basically entertainment fights. And it's not to pick on Brock Lesnar, to say that he isn't a quality fighter. I think he is. Obviously, he's lost, but he still can fight. So there's some sense to that. But they needed a ticket draw. And you had a young, hardworking, initially just a very appreciative Conor McGregor coming into a sport. And how couldn't we all get behind him? And if he was proud of his country, that's great. That's great. We don't have that in America. We don't have Americans proud to be Americans. And if they are, they're usually conservative, calm people who don't really promote it anymore. This isn't the 80s, okay? But I'm happy for the Irish that they have that, and they should celebrate their nationality, and they should celebrate all of their traditions and everything else. But if part of that comes with I'm going to insult you in every which way, and I'm going to be rude, and I'm going to be brash, and I'm going to everything else, then that's where the line should be drawn. And who really should have drawn that line was the UFC. But because Conor could garner tickets, he could get people's attention, the UFC was not going to stop that. They needed a new draw, and a consistent draw, not a every now and then Brock Lesnar draw. And GSP was nowhere to be found. And so Conor McGregor is born. And what happens from there? The sport becomes a bunch of character actors all of a sudden. You've got guys mimicking him. You got the fans entirely getting crazier and acting nutsier and rowdy and obnoxious and rude. You know, you would go to those events and it was almost like the comment section of a person's Facebook page or Twitter feed or post of a political point of view. It's just nastiness, nasty, ugly actions. And why? For what? I mean, look at. I think it's fun to have a side, to pick a side, to be excited for your side, to promote your side, to stand by whatever person you thoroughly enjoy or look up to, but at the expense of misbehaving and showing your children, showing this world nothing but ugliness. What's it all worth? We only have one life to live. And do you want to wait until you're in your 80s to be having to look back on your life and not be able to change all those bad things you did? You don't get to change them. And, making mistakes along the way in life is one thing, but trying to run towards bad actions is another. And I just think that what we've learned here in this fight is that the UFC has lost its honor. And it's lost that not because Dana White and all them were saying they actually wanted these bad actions to happen, but they didn't necessarily take the right measures to prevent something like this from happening. I mean, I'm surprised other fighters didn't do this after fighting Conor in the past. It does not excuse what Khabib has done. It does not mean that Khabib is in the clear and free and he shouldn't be punished. Definitely shouldn't have his belt stripped, that's for sure. Should he maybe have to pay some fines? Definitely. And should he maybe have a 6-month suspension? Yeah, that's for debate too. But let's make no mistake about it. He shouldn't be insanely punished, and not because I say that that those actions in any other circumstance technically wouldn't warrant a serious punishment, but it would be baffling to me considering how many events Conor McGregor has had in his life where he's done something bad. And again, to each their own. If Conor McGregor was ever to watch this video, more power to you, my friend. But, hey, if he has gotten away with all that, it doesn't matter what his paycheck is. It doesn't matter what fans he has. It would say, if this guy's to be punished heavily, we now are no longer somehow keeping the already skewed playing field level. Because if it was truly level, Conor wouldn't have gotten away with any of his bad actions. And therefore we wouldn't have the bad actions today. But we've had all these bad actions. They've all slipped through the cracks and everyone's turned around and jumped on thinking, well, Conor is amazing and awesome. And how awesome is he? And how brash is he? And loving the entertainment aspect of that. as if it was a sitcom, as if it was a nightly show or Game of Thrones. So, what I would have to say is that the UFC took the easy route out when losing GSP and Anderson Silva and all the fighters of the past that built the organization on much more mannered ways to conduct themselves. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of a bickering back and forth to each other at the fight promotion. There's nothing wrong with that. Keep it between the two fighters and your skill sets. And don't just yell and yell and yell and yell and overtalk the person 836 times. Because now that's what you get. Eventually you get someone else doing that to you. And what do we get? We get to listen to two schmucks yelling it out and nothing being about the quality of the sport. I mean, that would be like the end of a football game ends, the Super Bowl's over, and they're interviewing the quarterback. And as they're interviewing the quarterback, the other quarterback turns around and starts yelling at the quarterback, interrupting everything the guy's trying to answer that the media is asking that you would love to hear the answers to because you're a fan. Would that make any sense? No. No wonder the UFC has now at the post-fight press conferences separated the fighters from sitting next to each other. I'd have to say that was in some way, shape, or form a decision that was partially formulated from the contributions of Conor's actions. I mean, imagine you're 10 professionals sitting up there at that table. You've just duked it out and worked your ass off to kill your body for the sport, for your fans, for your family, to put bread on the table. And you get no talk time because there's one guy up there ripping apart no matter what anybody says. So I really hope what we get out of all of this is a better UFC again. Go back to the old school ways. Because it's okay to have some rivalry, or it's okay to have some back and forth comments to each other. But acting like children in those circumstances, conducting yourself entirely childish in those circumstances, I don't care at what level and what dollar and whatever you're going to gain from it. It's not worth it. Sure as shit ain't worth it for all of us fans. And not one child are we promoting good behavior to. And guess what? Children watch this stuff. I don't care if it's a pay-per-view and you say that they have to pay to watch it. Well, in today's day and age, parents are not going to turn around and corral their kids in every facet of their life to not see these things, be able to prevent their kids from they're at a friend's house and they see it. A parent only has so much control. So let's face it, there's ways to get through all the barriers parents put in place that when a child ends up watching this stuff, it's gonna affect the kid. And I think it's, not good. So, again, I don't have a leg to stand on. There's no part of me that's sitting here thinking to myself, you guys are even listening at this point. You might have listened for the first 2 minutes when you saw the caption. Once you saw this mug and then you heard this voice, you probably ran for the hills. But if you're this deep into this video, my creation of it, my reasoning behind making it is because I can only hope for a positive out of all this, not a negative. Not to spend all that time, sitting here saying Conor should have this, and this should be done to Conor, and that should be done to Khabib. what I think should come from this is an organization asks, requests, just like they request that all the fighters wear Reebok uniforms now. Well, request that all the fighters conduct themselves in the right manner, that them and their staff, that their friends, their whoever they're associated to, conduct themselves in a mannered way. And then guess what? We get pure fights. We actually get the champ in other weight classes gets attention. Because this sport, martial arts in its entirety, has an entire basis of being humble and respectful. And every sensei out there, every coach that's out there, it primarily raises their fighters and their students to have respect. And now you have one shining star that you're putting all the money into that's you're saying is this is what's awesome. This is what we're going to get behind. And then all the rest of the guys who've never spent an ounce of their training in shit-talking and trashing some other guy, it's completely against all the things they've learned growing up. Now you're asking them to try to become what the one thing is you're promoting. And therefore, guess what? Most likely that's going to look like a bad soap opera. The acting is not on the level that his is. Conor, it comes natural for him. Not everybody else. So it's okay to promote him, but put a lid on at what cost of his antics. I put a cap to his antics because look at the results. Look at this past weekend. Look at the results of those antics. And so that's my 22 cents. Okay? I'll be making another video about the same exact topic. Just this one I had to do off the top of my head, and it probably is horrible and will get 5 views. But if any of you are entertained by it, like it, and think I have some sense of the full picture here, make a comment. I'll comment back. Like this video, share it, and hopefully I get way better at this and make things much more professional and have a better time management, and I figure out a way to completely stay on track, because I'm sure my story got a little sidetracked, to say the least. So that's all I got for now, and wish you all the best in life, and hope everybody is happy and healthy, and anybody who you know has an ailment or anything, I will pray for them, and anybody in this world who is suffering, I will pray for you, and wish you guys all the best. Until next time, please comment and let me know if I even have some substance here. Maybe I should get the heck off of YouTube. Have a great day. Good night.